Hey friends, welcome to Wedding Film School. Today we're going to talk about how to book more weddings and make more money.
I'ma get right in my bag. Why you gonna try to get mad? Everybody wanna keep up. Don't you know I move too fast? I'ma zip right past. Drip all on my swag.
Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Film School show. My name is Jared Haskell, and we've got an awesome show for you today. I have my co-host Jason McCutcheon. How's it going, Jay?
It's going awesome. How are you?
Very good. It's a cold day up here in New England, but we're nice and cozy in our brand new studio space.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it's going to be even cooler pretty soon because we got this really dope neon light coming in.
Yep.
Which we're really excited about.
Yep. The paint is still drying down here. We're still getting our wits about us in this basement, figuring out how to make this streamlined so we're not editing the podcast till 1 a.m. on a Monday night.
Yes, we apologize for any of the issues you might have encountered with the previous episode, which you should go back and listen to, the first episode of the Wedding Film School show. So much fun to get to do. We also got to do a really, really cool clubhouse with some really awesome industry people talking about the topic from last week, and we're going to do that again this week. So definitely you want to, if you like Clubhouse and you like to talk about wedding filmmaking, then join us on Thursday 1 p.m. to talk about today's topic.
Yep.
Yes, Eastern Standard Time. Today's topic, which is
how to make more money by booking more weddings. It's something that we have talked about a lot, I think, on Wedding Pros. We obviously have a certain type of business model that is, I think, more of a scalable business model. But I think these topics that we're going to talk about today can really apply to any wedding videographer, wedding filmmaker out there. So really excited to do that, because I think it's really one of the questions that people get asked a lot is just like, hey, I've been doing this. I think I'm pretty good at it. How do I just get more of this? Like, I'm hitting a wall. Maybe I can only book 5 weddings a year, 10 weddings a year, and I want to be able to make this my full-time job. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. It's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I want to just give a shout out to today's show sponsor, which is Kinetenic, which is they make the Practilite, and a bunch of other things, by the way. But the Practilite 602, I think, is like one of the industry standard Fresnel lights that you bring to a wedding. It's awesome. Really love it. Great app. All kinds of cool stuff. Go check it out. If you use our code WFS25, you can get 25% off, which is really, really, really awesome deal. I wish I had that code when we bought ours.
Yeah.
But yeah, go check it out.
And no bullshit on this light. It is one of my favorite lights I've ever worked with. Like, we use them all
Built
the
like
time.
a tank.
Built like a tank, and we make fun of it a lot because we destroy all of our gear, and I think the Practilite.
It's the one light
stood
that
the
we
test
haven't.
of time.
It's the light we haven't been able to break.
Yeah, not yet. So we'll see. We
Working
still got
on it.
years. Yeah, we're working on it. But yeah, great light. And when is that? When does that promo end, Jay?
I don't know. So you should go today, right now.
Yeah,
and buy it.
I need to check in on that. We'll put it in the description below, but I think it might even be the end of the month. So you want to make sure which is February. So you want to make sure you're hopping in.
It's January.
January. You're right.
We are currently in January.
The beginning of February is what I. But we'll put that in the item description because you want to hop in on that. So yeah, I guess without further ado, Jay, what kind of made us decide to talk about this topic today?
For me, obviously, booking more weddings, I guess maybe making more money, but booking more weddings for a lot of people is the end-all, be-all topic, right? For a lot of people in our industry, and I've seen it like so much, like where I see people who they do very good work, and they seem to do a lot of things right, but then there's this 1 or 2 areas in their business that they're just not doing correctly. And they hit like a booking ceiling. So if you're listening to this and you're like, every year I book 15, why? I want to book 20. Why can I never get over that 15? Or why can I never get over the 20? Or if you're really starting out, like when we started out, and this is one of the things that inspired us. When we started out, we were probably hovering around 10 to 15 weddings for like 3 years.
Yeah, I think it was like 8, 15, 22. So, so it was growing.
Yeah, we saw consistent growth, but I remember...
But it wasn't doubling
No.
like I think we would want it to. And how it started to after, we put some, items in place.
When we started doing some of the things we're talking about today, we went from like 25 weddings to I think 45 weddings. And then we got like 60 weddings. And like we were like experiencing exponential growth every year.
2 times every year. Yep.
And like now we're at a different place in our business. We haven't experienced that level of growth, and we're trying to figure out what's the trick now. And so I think like the first thing I wanted to say before we got into the topic is like, no matter where you are in your business, if you're booking 30 weddings and you're just trying to increase the average value per wedding, or maybe you are starting out and you're just trying to go from 5 to 10, or like us, we're shooting 125 as a company and we want to get up to like 200 or something would be great. You're gonna have a problem to fix every year, and probably the answer is going to be somewhere in these 4 ways that you can book more weddings, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I really believe this isn't just a topic for people starting out.
Yeah, I agree. But if you are starting out, I think it's one of the questions you need to ask yourself early on is just, how many weddings do I want to be doing? I think a lot of people starting out, maybe people at home are sitting there and they're like, hey, I'm part-time. I have a full-time job and I like being able to shoot maybe 5 weddings a year, 10 weddings a year. But moving from my full-time job, or maybe I'm making 3 figures already, and then this is just a way that I can pay for my motorcycle addiction or whatever. The idea of maybe making this a full-time gig isn't even in their mind possible, because replacing that, high salary is nearly impossible. Like booking more weddings might not be the right option for you, but maybe generating more per wedding would be a better option for that person. So I think it's pretty important to find out what kind of business you want to run, how much money you want to make, setting those goals up front. So then you actually have a goal to be working towards, as opposed to just letting things happen to you. Mm-hmm. I think that's the first step is it even right for you to be booking more weddings?
And as book I love, extreme ownership, they always talk about this concept of basically everything is not your fault, but everything is your responsibility. So whenever you're looking at your own business, I think it really helps to go like, what am I doing or not doing that's contributing to my my business not reaching the goals that I have in my head, right? If you want to be booking 25 weddings and you're only booking 15, I'm not trying to say you're some kind of crappy business person or you're a bad artist, but like more like you have the power to fix that problem if you can overcome some of these issues. And I want to be realistic too. You need to be honest with yourself. Everyone has a ceiling with their business, either based on the amount of people that want, like if you want to shoot weddings where it's like, we only do underwater footage at our weddings. You're going to have a very small client base. Mm-hmm. Maybe you'll make the best ever. I saw one by Dax the other day where they shot underwater in I think Mexico, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
But if he was like, I'm only shooting weddings like this. Okay, well then you could only shoot weddings where you'd have a bride willing to do that near the ocean with clear water, all that stuff. And some of us also, we have a limit because like we haven't improved our skills enough. Yep. Or maybe we're not that good at business and we need a business partner, or like, who knows? Like, not everyone can have, there's no magic trick that's going to suddenly make you make $250,000 a year as a wedding filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. You know, we will never teach that. If you're new to this podcast, I do not believe that everyone can be equally successful as a wedding filmmaker. But I do believe everyone can be more successful. Yeah,
totally. And you talked a little bit about, cap. What are the caps? I think you hit on kind of more creativity, but for a lot of us too, it's also logistically, right?
Bandwidth, even
bandwidth. How many hours do you have in the week? What's taking up a lot of your time? Is it time for you to maybe decide to get a virtual assistant or a real kind of in-person assistant? Can you do that? Are you interested in that? There's a lot of ways that you can be capped. So those are things that maybe you need to figure out before your business can grow, because, growth is great, right? I always used to be like, hear podcasts and be like, they would be discussing like, well, we didn't want to grow too fast because, you know, we didn't want to not be able to support the infrastructure, right? You know, if you're selling more than what you have, that's a problem because you're going to lose a lot of clients, kind of thing. And I never really understood that because I was like, oh, just like make it happen. But it's true, you know, like you should not be trying to go from 20 weddings to 100 weddings in a single year. You know, it should be like a gradual build. What is that build? Kind of putting a roadmap together, I think is important for somebody who actually wants to grow their business and be doing more and booking more weddings.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest, it's an interesting topic, and I understand why people like it, but I've always, you know, how I feel about shoot less, get paid more. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, great. You know, there's a time and a place for shoot less, get paid more. There really is. And there's a time and a place for I'm only shooting X amount of weddings, and all I can do now is control demand by raising prices, all that stuff. That is not the end all be all. Mm-hmm. And like for some of you, like if you're booking like, I'll just throw a number out there. If you're booking like 30 weddings a year and you're getting so many leads you don't know what to do with, yeah, you need to raise your prices, right? And also, like if you're starting out and you're making really good work and people would be willing to pay double for it, maybe it wouldn't affect your leads, but like you could just make more money. Yeah, you need to raise your prices. But for a lot of people, they think there's some magic. You raise your prices and suddenly a more high-end bride will suddenly respect you more, and then suddenly it'll just change your whole life. Like, and a lot of people too, if you're really good at logistics and team building and all these things, like maybe you shouldn't raise your prices. Maybe you should get associates and book 3 times more weddings. Like that is a viable option. And like the fact that a lot of educators have no idea how to run that business means that they just tell you not to do it. I'm here to tell you, some of you guys should do that. And it's just really all about like what's right for you.
Yeah, it's a great point because I think a lot of people fall into that trap of saying, well, I should be charging 7, 8, 9, 10 grand for my weddings because that's what all the most successful people out there are doing, which is true. There are plenty of people out there making a successful living by doing $10,000 weddings. But I find that a lot of times there's a lot of people doing 200 weddings a year that aren't as well known, making even more money, you know? So there's a bunch of different ways to do this thing. I think it's a matter of finding, again, what's right for you. What are your skill sets?
Yeah, why do you want to book more weddings?
Yeah. Well, what are your skill sets? Are you able to be super organized? Are you super creative? Do you have an inside kind of scoop with planners? Like what are your assets? What are you actually able to do? And like figuring out, and it's not going to be one thing forever. Like no. I know in talking to plenty of successful filmmakers, they're like, well, I'm doing 20. I really want to be doing 10. I want to be doing less for more, you know, and that's going to work really well for them, but it's not necessarily right for everyone. So just finding what's right for you.
Yeah, and just being extremely honest about what you're working with. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're starting with today in today's topic of how do you book more weddings. This is a free one. It's not one of our 4 that we're going to be giving out, but like at the end of the day, every single one of these that we're going to bring up requires extreme honesty with yourself about like, how hard am I working? How good am I? Like you have to be honest with what you're actually working with, and you have to assess it. You have to sit down. If you're saying, well, my work is good, I do good work. Okay, well, do your clients rave about it? Are you able to honestly assess based on other competitors who are being booked around you? Like, how does your work compare? You can't even, if every time you look at any of your competitors' work, you never walk away saying, I got to get a little better. You're probably part of the problem because you're unwilling to be honestly assessing like your place in the market, and that's not good for your business. It's not good for you. And if you can't be honest with the fact that like you're disorganized or you don't really want to do the work, like I don't know, like I don't want to be a jerk to people, but if you're shooting 15 weddings a year and you can't even get your crap together to post on Instagram or do anything for your business, like I don't really want to hear you complain about it because it's like, what else are you doing with your time? If you're trying to be full time, even if you're not doing full time, do you remember at the beginning when we started our business and you're a full time student? I have never not had a second job. To this day, I work 20 to 30 hours at another job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do not want to hear about somebody who's saying I'm full time, I don't do anything else, constantly posting pictures of themselves traveling around in their converted van, like, who literally can't get around to promote themselves. Like, you're the problem.
Yeah, I think this is a good topic, and it kind of hits close to home for us because we've always just been like, this isn't working. What's the solution? And most of the time we're like, just work harder and like
or
bulldoze through and
change
do
something
it until
about
we
our
finish.
business.
Yeah. But most of the time, like, you're not ever going to have sympathy from Jason and I for how hard it is to run your own business. It's hard. It's going to be really hard. And as you move it from a part-time, kind of job or kind of a weekend warrior job to a full-time job, it's going to get harder.
Oh, and I relish you if you're in my market and you think that you can sit on your hands and not work in the off season, because I will lap you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
I want to take all the weddings.
Yeah.
And like, not because to be greedy, it's just like my goal is to book weddings. My
Yes.
goal is to not help you book weddings. My goal is for me to book weddings. And so like, I want people to call me. I want my marketing to do the work. I want to go and impress every planner. Like, that's everybody. Nobody is thinking like, man, I don't want to take too many weddings because what about my friends?
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody's thinking that. Everybody's trying to book as many as they can or whatever they need to be booking to make a successful business. And like, you... Probably the actual secret tip answer behind everything we're going to say today is you need to be honest and you need to be willing to work extremely hard.
Yep.
There's no magic secrets behind those two things.
Yep. If I've learned anything, we've been doing our business for a long time, for 12 years or so. If I've learned anything getting into this YouTube kind of world, podcasting, is you just have to work your butt off. It's like you just have to barrel down and to put the work in and work till 1 o'clock in the morning. And, okay, I'm going to put the kids down, but then afterwards, I'm not going to do Netflix. I'm going to actually just work. So that's probably step one, is be prepared to like work. If you want to do more weddings, obviously it's going to be more work. I think people understand that, but also like it's translating it to your mental of like, if I want to book more weddings, I have to just be prepared to work much harder or find better solutions. And, I think like anything, a lot of the work, 90% of the work is going to be up front.
Yeah.
Once you get over that hump and you can create systems and bring on maybe more people to help you out in areas you're not as, proficient in, it does get a lot easier.
It gets easier.
Yep.
It really does. And we're doing 125 weddings a year or more, hopefully. That's what our goal is. But I feel like for me, it's as easy as when I hear about other people who are doing 30 weddings, because we've built our workflow and our life around it. We've hired the right people. We have the right meetings. And so like, it's not like what's hard is figuring out what is my business? What is this creative process? What is this business workflow? So I think today we want to talk about 4 ways that you can book more weddings. I think these are not definitive. There are other things, and we're not going to get into all of them because they're pretty big topics. But there are 4 things that you need to look at and say, and honestly assess, how am I doing in this area, and can I work harder?
Okay, so let's hop right in. We have 4 topics. We like 4 topics for some reason. They say you shouldn't do 4. You should only do 3 or 5. But we're going to do 4.
I mean, one of them is kind of fake, so it's really 3. So
Yeah. That's usually how we do it. We discount one of them, the poor one.
The bonus topic.
Yeah, bonus topic. That's fair.
We'll do the bonus one first, actually.
Yeah. I think when it comes to booking more weddings, it really comes down to putting your effort towards one of 2 kind of, sides. You're going to either spend money or you're going to spend time, right? Mm-hmm. So the topics that we're going to talk about, some of them are spending more time, some of them are spending more money, some of them are a little bit of both. But you have to really see your schedule and say, what do I have more of? What are the commodities that I actually have? Do I have money? Okay, maybe I have to, and you're going to find the right combination of what works for your business. If you have less time and you have the money, hey, you're probably going to be better to get on these platforms and figure out how to use that money to be able to get in front of people. And then if you have time, which I think a lot of people starting out, that's the commodity they have more of is time. You think you don't have time, but trust me, you as you start, growing up and get older, like time becomes less and less and less. And, if you start having a family or whatever, you start really realizing that you had way more time when you were younger. So
my opinion is that people need to have a much. I don't have a lot. I think I'm actually marginally talented at a lot of things. I'm not super talented, but I'm incredibly. I have a great sense of urgency all the time, and so I beat people to the punch because I'm willing to work harder than them, and I'm willing to identify problems and be very relentlessly pursue them. For some of you guys, that will be enough. You don't need to become some incredible artist. You just need to start becoming urgent about the problems that your business has and actually moving forward on them. Like if you put pressure on them, like they would go away. And so booking more weddings oftentimes is just as simple as actually really, really caring about the problem and trying to fix it. So what's the first way people can book more weddings?
Yeah. So number one is just, it's a little bit obvious, but do good work.
Yeah.
Right. Number one is being a good artist and having a saleable product. And that one's a little bit obvious and a little bit cheating, but how oftentimes do you get a call that someone's just like, oh my gosh, I saw your work. I don't know anything about you and I want to book you. I think that's how a lot of people maybe start out. They're like, oh, my cousin saw your video that you did of this wedding and she absolutely loved it and she wants to book you. She hasn't talked to anyone else. She only wants you. That's number one. And I think it kind of snowballs into the rest of the ways to book more weddings. Right?
I think like the pursuit of doing good work is artistically satisfying, and that matters, by the way. Like you have to enjoy your job. So if you're sitting there thinking like, we don't care about it, no, it matters. We created a product and our own brands that we work on that's just for us. We're tinkering still. We still don't even have it down. It's an artistic venture and whatever. We respect that. And I do think doing good work, like it probably matters in levels. Like level one is like acceptable work that someone is willing to buy. And then there's like exceptional work that stands out in your market. And then there's like market leading innovative work. You don't need to do anything more than acceptable work to make a living doing this. And so, but if you're hitting that point and you're like, I cannot get a single person to pay more than $2,500 for my films, probably the first thing I would look at is like, is my work appealing to people in a way that like they view it as worth more? Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't think that's exclusively in the work because maybe how you're selling the work or, there's a lot of things that go behind it, but it's something I would at least look at is like, okay, who's charging what I want to make in my market? Are they way better than me? And just being honest with that is like, if you can't admit that anyone's better than you besides Alex Douglas, I don't know, you're probably not that good. Like you have to be able to look and go like, oh, they all the people in my market are buying this person and they have a storytelling mechanic that is way better than mine or who knows what it is. But I just think it's pretty basic, but it's a great place to start. And probably if you're listening to this, in my experience, most wedding filmmakers that are getting into wedding like education, their work is pretty good. Like a lot of it could be better, but most of them aren't walking around with their cameras out of focus and doing all this terrible, terrible work. Although I will say their work oftentimes doesn't have a brand voice. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's part of your work that needs to improve is like, it needs to be cohesive. One of the big things when we started Stop Go Love, what did you always say about the work when it comes to, we have all these different shooters and all these things going on. What was important to you?
The number one thing was consistency. Having everyone be able to shoot pretty close to the same. Everyone's using the same equipment. Everyone is a similar skill level. Here I am, and I have, at this point, close to 15, 17 years of experience, professional experience, and I'm bringing a kid on to be able to shoot who's only been doing it for 2-3 years, we have to be able to shoot the same video.
We literally would get rid of ideas that we wouldn't allow if it made it so that it wasn't reproducible for every single wedding.
Yes.
We'd be like, no one's allowed to do that because everyone can't do it.
Yep. And maybe
Basically.
I don't think it's necessarily a rule, but we're only as strong as our weakest shooter, right? It's like that. Our weakest shooter is the product, so we have to elevate that person so that we can have a better product. But pretty much, I can't bring everyone else up to my level of like having 17 years of experience. Like that's just not going to happen. That takes a long time of just like grinding, and it's only going to come from having experience. So,
yep.
I did want to ask you too, because we're talking a lot about like creativity. Do you think that doing good work, do you think this applies to just running a good business in general as well?
I think the other things apply more to running a good business because I know a lot of people who do good work that run terrible businesses. And the reason they're unsuccessful has, okay, let me say it this way. If you do average work but run a good business, you will be more successful than if you do good work and run a terrible business. My opinion is that the branding, relationships, marketing side tip way faster in terms of booking weddings than good work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, because honestly, good work is a dime a dozen.
Yep.
But people who know how to market their brand, talk about their brand, connect with the right people, they're the ones who just ascend.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of the time, if someone's beating you in the market, there's some reason that isn't your work.
Yeah.
But I do think you need to look at your work. At least start there with an honest assessment. And if you need help with an assessment, feel free to submit a film to Wedding Film School. We do film critiques.
Yeah. Yep. That's something that we're going to be breaking out. Are we going to do that this week? Probably next week, right?
We're going to try to do one probably, I think, this week.
Stay tuned. The Facebook group, that's really where you can stay up to date with all Wedding Film School news, what we're doing. We mentioned it before. We're doing a clubhouse every Thursday, 1 p.m. to just kind of chit-chat, but we're also going to be doing these awesome live reviews.
Yep.
So
websites, different stuff. But,
Yep.
but primarily, like, I do think this is where, like, if you're wondering, is my work up to par, get another artist who's really good, who you respect, and ask them. So I think that's the first one.
Yep.
Do good work.
And I'll mention just before we move on to number 2, on Clubhouse with last week for the first episode, our companion Clubhouse conversation, it came up in the conversation of like, look, most of the time people aren't really able to tell the difference between one videographer and the other. Maybe there's like subtle things and they're like, that person has less camera shake maybe, but for the most part, most planners probably aren't even really looking at your work. They're kind of like, I like that person or I don't like that person as much, and therefore I think they're going to treat my, couple with more respect and be a better fit. So, I think it does eventually get to a certain point where it's like the work is important, until you reach, 95% critical mass or skill level. And then after that, it's like minute, the amount that you can really get better. It takes a lot more work to get a little amount better.
Most people are pretty good at making films because that's why they got into it. They're interested in doing good work. They're not interested in marketing or business or any of that crap.
Completely.
So the second thing I wanted to bring up, and this is huge, and I think one of the biggest things people totally blow it on, is make it easy for your clients to become more than just clients. Help your clients to become advocates for your brand. And so this is really huge. And this is usually just about making things convenient for them.
Yeah. And this probably bleeds more over into running a good business, right? Mm-hmm. Having good systems, making it so that people don't hate communicating with you. Which is challenging because people like to communicate in different ways. But having a consistency, like for a while, and I've changed my tune on it, but I just could not communicate with people via text because I'm a terrible texter. Anyone who knows me, people are at home like, oh, he's the worst texter, I promise you.
Definitely you're not the worst.
Yeah, but it just doesn't work well for me because I'm like, usually in the middle of doing a podcast, or I'm like editing and I have my phone, away from me.
I love texting. I don't know why.
Well, it's just like, it's another thing. Like, I'm talking to people on Instagram, Facebook, email, Honeybook. I'm on all these things that I'm like, that is the way to communicate with me. It's consistent for me. So I didn't even open up text messaging. Now, I've opened up text messaging maybe a little bit more, but I've had to close off other things to just be like, this is how you can actually get a hold of me, because it is more convenient to people to text.
Yeah, it starts with client experience.
Yes.
And making sure that the client experience is clear and convenient for them, and that they have a good time connecting with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it starts. And I think people can do okay there. I think if you just put it out there, if you don't respond to your clients, that's bad. You're not going to get referrals. If you're a pain to work with, if you make them uncomfortable, if you're trying to like hit on their bridesmaids or groomsmen, or just whatever the weird stuff but like, don't do that stuff. Be professional. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm assuming everyone's being professional and is really trying to work at, I will say this is more of an advanced thing. When you see people who are at the top of the game, they are freaking charming. Mm-hmm. And they work on being charming. They work on looking cool. They work on making people like they want to be the person that gets invited to the party. Mm-hmm. Like, when you look at Henry or White and Reverie or Lindsay from Le Rêve, any of these people, like Henry Martins, by the way, not just Henry, but these are cool dudes and ladies. They make an impression on their clients, and their clients like them. And like, for our business model, we have a little bit of a different approach when it comes to Stop Go Love. I do think our clients like us. That isn't quite the most important part of our client experience, but like, you have to figure out, how do I make this a great experience for them? Either the most convenient, or you're really cool, or whatever, but it has to be in thinking, like, how am I turning this into a great experience while you're working with me? The most fun sessions, whatever it is.
Yep.
And then I think this is where people drop the ball, because I think a lot of people do pretty good. When it's over, they make it like impossible for the clients to like do the work of marketing them for free. So like, little stupid things like, if you're starting out, this is my opinion. If I was starting a business this year, I would go buy a Fuji X-T4. I would get a Weeble Lab, and I would just shoot a ton of weddings for, as cheap as I possibly could, or as much as I could make, but I would just want to be booked. And then I would go like this. Hey, here's your recap film. I'm going to give you a free teaser for every one of your films, because I want to make sure all the clients I have are posting something of mine. And by the way, don't be annoying about it. I've heard some people like, how do you make people do this? Do not try to make your clients do this. That's so out of line. Like, hey, why didn't you post my thing? Or,
oh yeah,
I've heard people say, like, suggest this.
Don't do this for you for free. Yeah,
don't do that.
Don't do that.
But just make it easy for people to share, and like, give it to them in a format that goes right to their phone. Don't like make it easy for them to get that freaking thing up on Instagram. Give them 15-second vertical edits to put in their stories. You like. Tag them in the story, by the way, like, put their name on it, like, make it easy for them to tell all their friends, this was my wedding videographer.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. This is all really good. And this is like cherry on top kind of stuff. Like, hey, go the extra mile, do the extra thing that's going to get you booked and make people remember you, not just your bride, but also the people that are surrounding the bride on the day of, wedding party, family, whatever. I would say, too, to go back to like fundamentals, like, this is just a common principle that you should make your own today. Because I think it's what a lot of people have a hard time with is do what you say you're going to do, right? Like, that makes it
deliverable, on time. Yeah.
On time. It just, and the little things, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to buy yourself leverage. Every single time you interact with your bride, you're buying yourself leverage. When you say, hey, this was a great conversation we had, when you're booking them, I'm going to send you an email tonight. Make sure it's not tomorrow morning. Make sure it's that night.
No excuses either.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, your kid, like, if you say to me, well, nothing's more important than family. No, nothing's more important than your word. That client doesn't care about your family. If you know that you're going to spend time with your family that night and that you're willing to not do what you say because your kid might cry and need you to put them to bed, tell them I'll do it by tomorrow. No one forced you to lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think most people will care. Like if you're like, hey, I just got home. I got to put my kid to bed.
Humanize yourself
I'll send it to
right
you tomorrow
there.
morning. And no, most people aren't going to care that you send it to them in the morning. They're like, great, yeah, be home with your family. But do the thing you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you don't, they're like, oh, I thought Jared was going to get back to me. And I've done it. I'll tell you.
We do this.
I do it a million times. But I know that when I do exactly what I say I'm going to do, people are like, I can trust that guy. I can trust, like, you've built up and you've done exactly what you say you're going to do, even with like the smallest, minute little details leading up to the wedding day, that once the day comes, they're like, Jared is awesome.
Yep.
He's awesome. His team is awesome. They've done everything along the way. And that way, again, you're buying yourself leverage. So if anything does come up, most of the time it doesn't have to do with you.
Put a change in your pocket.
We were on the Facebook group, and someone this week was just talking about like, oh, the bride changed her package like last minute, and now she doesn't actually, like what she received. And it's like, that stuff happens. It's a lot easier to deal with that bride. And I'm not saying this person didn't do these things, but it's a lot easier to deal with that bride along the way, or at that moment when you've done everything and they're like, yeah, he's built up a lot of trust with me, and I think he would say exactly what he gave me. So it's probably my fault. They're much more likely to give you grace because you've built up that trust.
And they're much more likely to be, assuming you don't screw up, much more likely to tell everyone. Because one of the things I'll say at the end of this topic is make it easy for them to give you reviews. Mm-hmm. You tell them where to go. You send it to them, all this stuff.
Yep.
But part of that client experience thing is like the things that they will review you on are almost never the quality of the film.
It's very true. Yep.
They will say like fun, easy to be around, or we had some negatives where they said bad communication. Mm-hmm. What does that have to do with the film?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with the film. This client just didn't feel like, oh, this brand is the brand I want to connect with. Mm-hmm. They were not, they didn't like the experience of working with us. And most of the people who do, which, we have a lot of good reviews, they had a great experience.
Yep.
They liked the people and they thought it was fun. And so help these people, make it easy for them, please. If you are selling teasers and things like that and you have plenty of sales and you're getting plenty of referral marketing, great. But I'm just saying in general, like if you're not and you're stuck at a booking point, maybe you're not getting the brand publicity that you could be getting from one of your best assets, which is the current couples you're working with. You need make them promote you for free by giving them content to put out there and make it easy and make it timely while they're like still psyched about their marriage and their wedding and they're still pumped about it. Like get it to them. If you don't have 125 weddings, you have 10 weddings, give it to them in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Like it makes a big difference. It'll help. So
I'll say with that too, communication, you hit on it. Communication is huge in this step with the bride and groom. That means basic things like getting back to emails, that kind of stuff. I'll tell you a story from this year that I think a lot of people can learn from. So we have always been the people that we post to Vimeo. And this year we're like, oh, Vimeo has a new feature where when you upload to Vimeo, you can also upload to YouTube automatically. Great. So we usually have the Vimeo it's set as private until, Kyle will edit it, Caleb will edit it. I'll take a look at it and go, good guys, I'm going to send it to the bride kind of thing. And a lot of times they'll upload a video that they finish on Monday. It'll come to Friday. I'll spend a couple hours looking at films and then approving them or giving them notes and saying, hey, fix this on Monday. We'll send it to them on Monday kind of thing. That's kind of our process. And, the video got shared to Vimeo. It also automatically got uploaded to YouTube, but it's public facing. And so we had a bride this year who was, a special kind of bride. She was like, saw that. So followed us on YouTube, saw that her film was uploaded, which we have like not that many followers on our YouTube.
We're
But
not the guys to talk to about building your wedding business on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. But she saw that because she was getting antsy, and it was probably 2 to 3 months ahead of when we really needed to deliver. And it took me a week to eventually send her an email. But she sent an email actually first, and she was like, hey, I saw this video online. Like, how can we share it? Blah, blah, blah. And you could tell that she was kind of ticked off that we didn't tell her as soon as her video was uploaded. That, and I didn't realize that it was even
She thought that we
public.
publicly shared her video
Yes.
without telling her.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, to me, it's like a small thing that like we did a lot of, like this person booked us like 2 weddings before, or 2 weeks before her wedding. So I'm like, we bailed you out. Like, give me a little grace here, lady. But she is right. That is a way that we could have gotten better and just had a system that was a little bit better and communicated better. Like, and she doesn't care. The fact that I'm like, well, I wanted to look at it and I wanted to give our editor feedback.
It was a new feature on YouTube. All
A
that
new
crap.
feature on you. She does not give a crap about any of that. All she knows is that, it's posted and why
We're
wasn't I letting
unprofessional.
we're unprofessional
Yeah.
because of it. So it's just like people are going to have opinions, and our job is just
Yeah.
like, how can we foresee what those, opinions, as crazy as they might sound to somebody, or sound to us, kind of nipping those and having a little bit of forethought of how people are going to perceive certain things, and trying to nip them in the bud.
If you're not having client referrals in particular, this might be an area you want to look at. If you're struggling
Yeah,
to
it's
get
true.
referrals, you might need to look at like, what is my experience like, and is there any feedback I've gotten that what I do tend to find is like a lot of people are very they have a big blind spot in this area because they think like, well, my film's great, and like when they hear you're a total pain. And like you're unprofessional and you look like a slob, and like there's all these things you need to do a little better with your clients, and you like are late with your deliverable, and you just little things that end up becoming big things when you add them all together. So the third thing that you really want to look at doing if you want to book more weddings is
The third thing is industry relationships,
Yeah.
right? So I think this is kind of a multi-tiered and multi-pronged kind of approach. We've really whittled it down to a few industry professionals being photographers, other videographers. We've talked about event planners being a person that can really give you work. So let's break down kind of the different types of relationships and how someone at home right now who's like listening to the podcast and is like, I don't have any of these relationships. What some ways for them to actually get out there and practically create these kind of networking relationships?
So my opinion on this subject is it is the most important way that you can grow your weddings. And unfortunately, the most effective way to grow these relationships is by working weddings with other people. You have to get a wedding to get the next wedding.
Yep.
And so just like I said with clients, if you are not getting vendor referrals, and the primary referrals you should be looking at are, if you're a videographer, is photographer referrals and planners and venues, really. Venues that
Yep.
have their own like event staff.
Yeah, so let's talk about planners.
But-
What are some ways that you can actually talk to a planner and even let's talk about even before you meet them, and let's talk about ways that you can interact with them on the day of to make them want to book you.
So the first thing I think you need to do is you need to play by their rules
Yes.
before the wedding. Like to the best of your ability. There are probably things you can't do. And we sometimes tell planners like, look, we're not going to do it that way, especially because we're more established. But you do need to play by their rules. Like if they're like, talk to me, not the client. Like if you want that person to refer you, which maybe you don't, maybe you're like, screw that person. I'm not working with that person. I respect that. But if you want them to refer you, you got to play by the rules. That's what planners are looking for. They're looking for people that fit on, because planners look at it like, this is my team.
Yep.
They probably have a list of like 4 videographers they ever refer. Most planners I knew are maybe doing 10 weddings a year.
Yep. Exactly.
So if you work 2 or 3 weddings with someone, you're like one of their people. And like you want to become one of their people. So first thing I would say is play by the rules if you get a wedding with them. The second thing I would say is like, if you know there's someone who you really want to work with that's a planner and there's some way you can add value to them, try to do it. Maybe it's you get a wedding with them and then you're like giving them the props and you're tagging them, you're sending them the film, you're saying, you know, you're making sure to feature their work in the film. Or maybe there's a planner who like, in our area, a lot of planners put on like extra of industry events. And we really try to create, like we'll say, hey, do you need someone to cover that industry event for you? We'll shoot it and we'll edit it for you. And like we want to be their partners in what they're doing besides just the weddings, but just in general. We want to be their partner.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it kind of goes hand in hand with, I think, finding the right people here. I don't know if there's any other vendor relationship that's more important to find the right type of planner to work with, because some planners are going to want you to just be super hands-on with their couple. Others don't want you to be hands-on at all. They don't even want their couples to know your name.
Yeah.
You're just the videographer to show up. So, you know, you have to figure out what works in your brand, what planner actually, you know, what's going to actually work out to make the planner really happy, and then you really happy so that you can actually do your job as well. So figuring that out, I think, is critical early on. We have awesome relationships with certain planners, and then other planners, it's just like, it's not that I dislike them or whatever. It's just much more challenging to work with that person. So, and sometimes like I'm willing to just be like, nah, I'll bite the bullet, like whatever. It's just a pain working with this person every once in a while. But sometimes I'm just like, we can't do that. I can't do this type of wedding where it's like, we can't actually talk to the people ahead of time. It just doesn't work with this brand. It might work with this brand.
You don't like wedding planners selling videography for you?
Yeah. It's just, I've been...
You don't see the issue there?
Yeah. And also, you know...
Oh, of course, he's going to do everything for you, everything.
Finding a planner who takes the time to understand your thing, like the way that you cover, and that comes with a little bit of maybe working with each other a couple times.
Yeah,
but
you
also,
have to earn people's respect.
But also up front, just like they've worked with you before, they have their interpretation, but they're willing to be like, how can I sell this to my couple and understand your business more? That kind of planner is invaluable. Yeah. Because that's the kind of person that you really want to work with. And so I would say when you are, you know, very new to the game, it might seem like, oh, I want to work with this planner. Their style, I like the way they do floral arrangements or whatever. And then once you get past that initial like style and aesthetics, it really becomes the most important thing. How do I work with this person? So I would say, yeah, the aesthetics, that kind of stuff, when you're trying to find an event planner to like maybe approach, is the basic kind of upfront, just surfacey stuff. But then having that relationship, that's really where you're going to shine with that person.
And I was going to say, the next thing about planners, and this comes back to client experience, is if you want to get referrals from planners, planners will hear every single mistake you make to the client. And if they find out that you are too much of a pain to their clients, they will not refer you anymore.
Yep.
And so, like, that's the big thing is, like, when you get a chance to work with the planner, you can't be doing stuff that makes the couple go, because people who hire planners often, instead of going to you with their complaints, they go to that planner.
Yep.
And they'll be like, he wouldn't do this, he wouldn't do that. And they were like, and that planner, like, we have some good relationships where they've come and complained about some things we've done, and we still work with them because we have a relationship with them. And then I'm sure there are people over the years that just have never called us back because their client maybe didn't have the best experience. Who knows? Yeah. But like, I know that's a big deal. The second relationship, which I will only touch on briefly, is venues and the people there. Venues are pretty easy to get in their good graces, because if you give them content to help them promote their venue and it looks great, I think you're going to have an advantage there.
Yeah, and it's a different relationship, and I think it's, when you're first starting out, it's a critical relationship to understand the difference between a kind of separate solo planner and a venue planner.
Yeah,
right?
Event coordinator. Because an event coordinator is really working for the venue. They want things to be super turnkey, and they are going to kind of, I find
side with you on a lot of things where it's just like, yeah, like as long as you're making their job easier, they're willing to have a lot of just like, well, they have to go. Like we have to go move to the next, event. Whereas an event planner is really always going to be working for the couple, right? Because that's
a wedding planner.
A wedding planner. Yeah, sorry. A wedding planner is always going to be first and foremost like worried about their couple because that's who's going to be referring them kind of thing. The venue is going to be much more willing to just like, hey, like you guys, I don't want to get in between the relationship between you and the client. They're much more willing to let you just have a one-on-one kind of interaction with the client.
As long as you're on schedule.
Yeah, planners want to kind of, be very involved. And I think once you get to that higher echelon of wedding, you always just have to work with a planner. But when you're in kind of the in-between, the beginning of luxury,
there's a lot of money in making venues happy.
Yep, totally.
There's a lot of money, and they're easier.
Yep.
Because as long as you're on time and you're fun the day of, they're going to be happy.
And venues do a lot more weddings than planners.
Yes.
Because they're going to do 50, 60, 70. So if you can get in with a venue and be like one of the 5 people that, on a preferred vendor list, you're going to get a lot more work.
And I'm not really sure we make a big emphasis on getting on people's preferred vendor lists.
No.
We just are good.
I'm always surprised when I find ourselves on vendor
We're
lists.
apparently on them.
Yeah.
But we don't ask to be on them.
Yeah.
Like we don't pay to be on them.
Yep.
Nothing. We just show up, do great work, make sure we tag them when we post them and say this venue is awesome. Always talk about the venue when you publicize your content.
Yep.
And we're fun to deal with.
Yep.
And they like us and we don't cause problems.
Yep.
And that's it. So, and the next one I think is one. This relationship is very critical, and especially for us when we are growing our business. And this is other creatives. You have to get referrals from other creatives. And people screw this up so bad, especially videographers, with how annoying they are to photographers. It is so stupid. Like, please explain to me, Jared, why did wedding videographers not understand how much they're screwing themselves by constantly having a crappy attitude about photographers?
Well, I think from the photographer's perspective, a photographer is probably working with a videographer once every other wedding, so they have half an experience where they are the only person on site being able to call every single shot. And then at 50%, they have a videographer who's kind of like, I demand half the time. So they're like automatically going to be like, I hate working with a videographer. If the videographer is demanding of time, demanding of the essentially getting the shots, taking time away from the photographer getting their shots, where if you've worked a wedding day, there's not really a lot of time to get those shots and really create chemistry and stuff. So when you work with a videographer who's always interrupting you and, by the way, I'm not saying it's all about the photographer on a wedding day because it's not.
Yeah, it's a dance.
It's a dance. Yeah, you have to learn how to tango. And a lot of videographers, I don't think really understand, hey, I have to find a way to help this person do their job.
Well, it's about the client too. It's like,
Yes.
do you think that client wants bad photos in order to get video? They don't want that. They pay good money for that.
Yep.
They want it all to be good. So just like the best way to get that for is be cool.
Yep. Be a team player. I mean, good communication. If we haven't worked with a photographer before, something that we started doing that I've seen a lot of success with is just like reaching out to the photographer beforehand and just saying like, hey, Paul, like we're going to be working together this weekend. We haven't worked together. Like, I love your work. It's great. Just wanted to let you know that I'm going to kind of let you be director day of. Like, there might be a couple times I might want to hop in if that's okay with you. You kind of give someone permission to say yes or no. Not every photographer is going to be nice, but I think for the most part, photographers are
By the way,
awesome.
we're talking about how to get more weddings.
Yes.
If you don't want to do this, what we recommend, which is defer to the photographer, you don't have to. You just won't get referred as much.
Well, and I think there is a way to do both. I wouldn't say it's like, oh, if you don't do documentary type of capturing of a wedding film,
my opinion
that you
is,
won't get more work. But I would say that if you have to find what works, right? You have to find what gives the photographer what they need to be able to get, and then gives you what you need to get as well.
If you are if you, the reality is more people are willing to pay more money for photography. Photography is more important to most clients.
Yep.
So, which is reflected in what they pay for. So that's the reality. It doesn't matter what reality you want, the reality that you're in. If you really don't want to deal with that reality and you want to make sure that you're in control, you need to make sure you get paid as much or more than the photographer. And if you're not, and I'm telling you, that's how you know. Yeah. If you are getting paid as much or more than the photographer, then you know who has the clout on that day and who can make more demands. But I'm telling you, like, that couple is going to be like, ugh. If it's some kind of power struggle. And it's just like, I want these people to like me. I don't need to have all this control to shoot a great wedding film. I can shoot a great wedding film. Like, I just want that photographer to love me because I want them to, some photographers refer us 3 to 4 times a year.
Yeah.
We're making $10,000 off that relationship. Money talks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't tell you guys how many times I'll work with a photographer. And if you've probably heard this as well.
Oh,
if you're at home.
I can predict what you're going to say before you say it.
It's just, I worked with this one videographer and I just can't ever refer any. I just don't know any that I would feel like I could trust to do a good job. And when we worked with someone for the first time, it's almost like, sigh of relief. Finally, someone that I really enjoy working with. And it's really not that hard. Just like it. And look, sometimes, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like every photographer is super awesome or cool or like whatever, but like I feel like most of the time you can really get along with anybody. And I've worked with photographers who have gotten in my shot 1,000,000 times during the day, whatever, that stuff happens. But at the end of the day, they still are like, you guys are awesome to work with. And they refer us.
Yeah,
and they give us
think
more
about
work.
that.
So
if someone gets in your shot all day, and it already happened, by the way, like you can't go back in time and
yeah.
Would you rather them give you another wedding worth $5,000 or know that you were mad at them?
Yeah.
What is the benefit to it?
If someone getting in your shot who's referred to you, is that worth $5,000 to you? It's worth $5,000 to me.
Yeah, I'll let them stand in my shot
yeah.
all the time if they give me $5,000.
Yeah, I got the work, so it's just like, and I think that's what it. I'm not saying it's not annoying.
It is annoying.
Saying it's annoying. It's totally fine to just, but how you internalize that and how you project that to people around you is something that
Be professional.
Have self-control.
Yeah,
like,
and also have grace because like
yes.
if that person's a little annoying to me, maybe I'm a little annoying to them. I have to put out into the world what I want to receive back.
Yep.
So I want people to be gracious to me.
Yep.
So I think that's a big thing is like, I don't think this relationship being screwed up is even worth having a 10% better film. I really don't. And I know that some people might disagree with me, but I'm saying like, we're talking about getting booked more.
Yep.
And one way to get booked more is to make these relationships go. And you had mentioned when we started out, this is like a bonus thing. One of the vendor relationships you should find is people around you who do wedding filmmaking, because we worked really hard at the beginning. There's some people we made friends with. We met by chance, I guess, Evan, Frame, and Anchor.
Yep.
And they referred us a lot at the beginning. They got us into the whole Newport market. Like that was basically a competitor who got booked up and was like, who do I respect? Who do I trust? And they gave us, and it really transformed our business. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, that last person that I don't think it really gets talked a lot because it's that whole community over competition thing, which I've never really, I'm still dealing with a little bit. I think we're actually going to I want to do a chat on Clubhouse about it because it's something that I've been kind of working through and trying to figure out because we're competitive. Like if you're in wedding films, I mean, most of the best wedding filmmakers are like ultra competitive, right? But at the same time, when you look at like your industry, like at the same time, I want to see our industry grow.
Yeah, and we want to be generous people.
Yeah, and by me referring someone who I really like and I think is actually promoting the goodness of our wedding industry, I would rather promote that person than that the couple go to somebody else who I'm like, they're not doing the wedding industry very good. So building other videographers up, whether it's you giving a referral to another videographer and you having kind of like a small little collective, I think that's kind of the direction that a lot of successful wedding filmmakers go, especially when you're trying to really build up your amount of bookings in a year. I've seen just a lot of people be successful that way.
Well, it's like a little bit here, like some from your work,
Yep.
some from planners, some from. It's like when you start doing this stuff right, it'll start all coming together.
Yep.
So the last thing that I think you can, and we'll probably do a whole other podcast about this one, so we'll kind of be a little brief on it. But the last thing you need to do if you want to book more weddings is really just start marketing your brand the right way. And there are two main things that go into that. First is the dreaded paid marketing, which I actually think is probably the right fit for many people because it's actually pretty easy. You just need money and, the right placements. And the second one is just the free sweat equity marketing. So it's not really free, but the Instagram, whatever it is for you, the YouTubes, the things that you're doing that are generating eyes on your business that are not things that maybe cost money, but they take your time and you have to create assets and you have to do the work. But like, this is probably where most people probably are like, they do good work, they have good relationships, and they're just not reaching enough brides or grooms with their work. And so like their marketing and their branding is just suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, they just simply don't have enough leads to really fill themselves out. When you have a wedding schedule, you have certain dates that you're going to get 7-8 inquiries for. And you're like, the rest of June is wide open, guys. Why do I keep on getting June 6th over and over and over again? So you're getting these leads that are just throwaway leads, essentially. So the way that you really get filled up is by having, 4 times the amount of bookings that you can actually handle to really fill yourself out.
It's a numbers game. It ultimately is a numbers game.
You say it all the time, and you're so right.
You have to it's really about, I want to close on, probably I've heard like 12 to 15% for like a really healthy business. We want to be a little higher because we have a volume business. But if you're running like an artist model studio for yourself and maybe your wife or whatever, or your husband, you want to be closing like 10 to 12% of your leads, which means you want it ideally in a healthy place. You're at the right price where you can reject 90% of people who call. You're just not a good fit. Who knows? You can turn a lot of people down, curate the weddings that you want, and end up with the 30, 25, 40 weddings that you want to be shooting every year. And mostly you're not going to get that many leads from referrals. Like what we look at for us is about 25% of our booked weddings are from leads and referrals. Maybe a little more, a little less, depending on the year.
Leads and referrals? Or
no,
just
our
referrals
booked
in
weddings.
general?
Our booked weddings.
Our booked weddings are from probably
25% from client, probably 25% from vendor, and the other 50% either from marketing or just from the wild somewhere, SEO, whatever it is. And SEO, by the way, is marketing. Like if you you don't have to. Here's the key with all this. My opinion, everyone should have some paid marketing. Everybody, like you invest in your business, please. Like, I don't care if it's I don't care if it's boosted posts. We're not here to
$5 a day.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about what are the best form of paid marketing. We'll do that another time. Do some paid marketing because at least you're proving to yourself that you actually believe in your own business. But the free marketing side, you don't need to do everything. Like
that's true.
You don't need to win on. We suck at YouTube for our Stop Go Love, partially because we chose to ignore it. And that's partially why we've grown, because we don't try to succeed at everything. We just picked Instagram.
Yeah.
We don't even do Facebook.
Yeah.
We only do Instagram. And we don't even do that much.
Yeah.
Like,
And to be fair, I mean, we don't really have to. I think when I think about Instagram, I think about certain social medias, I'm like, well, I want to future-proof us from in case the Not a Wedding Wire just goes away. Like we have a diverse way to, attack, our marketing. But we don't have to because we're full.
Well, and we have hundreds of links all around the internet, from Martha Stewart wedding to Style Me Pretty to 50 or 60 weddings on Love Stories TV to 50 or 60 weddings on Party Slate. Like I'm trying to get my URL like all over the place. I want to be ubiquitous. I want everyone to see me everywhere and generate weddings. And so whatever it is, that's just me doing work. To just put myself out there. And like the thing about marketing, and this is my biggest marketing tip, because I do marketing for companies, right? And the biggest thing that most people don't realize is marketing at a 1% close rate for the initial, like, if you show it to 100 people, maybe one person books is a good number. And so when you think about it in that way, you need to, so many more people need to see your thing than you think. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, 100 people saw my thing. Did you book one wedding? And maybe it could be lower. Now, that's not the case for referrals and things like that, where you have that person's already a curated lead. They're hitting you hot.
Yeah.
They're deciding, like, they have all these things that, like, if I told you, like, this is the best mattress, and you go to the website, you're more valuable than a person who just stumbled upon your website. So, yeah, a lot of you are like, what? 10% close rate? That's terrible. It's like, well, you're not doing any marketing. We do marketing, and I can tell you we get like 600 leads a year, and we don't sweat the fact that 80% of them walk away and don't buy anything, and probably like 40% of them don't even email us back.
Yeah.
Cares. We don't even pay attention.
And marketing allows you to, I think, target people a little bit better. Like, we were like, hey, we would rather be in Vermont than Boston. For a while, we were like, we really want to build up our Vermont market just because we think it's more of what our style is.
A good opportunity there, too.
The good opportunity. We were like, let's go. Like, and now we're in Vermont way more, and it's more the weddings that we want to do. So I think the paid advertising.
And all we did there was paid advertising.
Yep. Paid advertising definitely helps. So it's not just, about booking more, but also booking more of the weddings you want is, I think, a little bit easier. And I think it also relates to the type of people you want, and you're going to draw in certain people with the energy that you put out. So that, I guess that's going back to
every
your
once in a
client,
while, like, there's someone who's so exceptional, who's so incredible at making wedding films that they do all this stuff wrong.
Yep.
And the universe just won't keep them shut out because they're just so good. And that's some of you. But a lot of us are just normal people. And we have to work really hard to get what we have. And so if you're listening to this, here's what I want you to do. Think about these 4 things: your work, your relationships with other people, your ability to make brides your advocates and make them love you, brides and grooms. And then, of course, your marketing side, your paid marketing, or your just the sweat equity free marketing. Which area resonates with you most? You don't need to fix them all right away. Just fix one thing at a time. Just pick one, work on it, put effort in, get a plan together. We'd love to hear how it goes too. And we'd love you to join us on Clubhouse, because that's coming up, and we want to talk about what you think the biggest thing is that you're working on. And if you have any questions, let us know. Definitely leave that in the comments, by the way. If any of these things stuck out to you, we'd love to hear success stories, questions, whatever. But definitely subscribe, and please hit the alert bell. It really helps us. This is long content. We know this. We're going to still be doing all our other content for Wedding Film School, BTS videos, product reviews, all this stuff. But this content, we want to dig a little deeper.
Yep. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Wedding Film School show, and we'll hopefully see you next time.